Fog machine. It should be there. You just hit the button, James.
Can somebody tell me where our hosts are?
Yeah.
What?
I sound scared that you could hear me chewing.
I heard like a hum.
White on set.
Alright, let's get this done.
Roll camera. Roll sound. Season 1, Episode 4. Marker.
And action.
Welcome to All the Hats, a podcast about filmmaking and industry. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new episode of All the Hats, a podcast about filmmaking and industry. My name is Eric, with a K.
And I'm James Gary. I had to turn us up.
Yeah, you want to restart?
Do you want to start over?
Yeah,
start over.
I'm sorry because
No,
it
that's
was
fine.
like it wasn't sounding. I think I'm turning the wrong people.
And you
up.
like-
1 second.
Hold on, do you want
Okay,
you
take it
to
Talk.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
I have it right. Okay, thought I was wrong. Talk into the microphone.
Check. This is All the Hats. We're going to have some fun. Kind of.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay.
This may be better.
All right, ready? I'll reclap. Well, that's going to screw up my editing.
Well, you'll see the 3 peaks. And then
Yeah. Okay. What's up, folks? Welcome to All the Hats, a podcast about filmmaking and industry. My name is Eric, with a K.
And I'm James Gary.
And today we have with us Aaron Rosene. He's a camera assistant based right here out of Atlanta, Georgia. Aaron, welcome to All the Hats.
Hey guys, it's great to be here in my own home that you guys also live in.
So we've been trying to get you on for a while here because we've had a few people on now over the last couple of weeks. But we haven't had any camera assistants on. And I think it's really important to have you on because we just want people to know what exactly a camera assistant does.
So we'll start with the most well-known duty of a camera assistant is specifically for the second camera assistant is the slate or the clapperboard, as a lot of people like to call it. You write everything on the slate. You make sure it's correct with the script supervisor, and then you call out scene 1, take 1 marker, and you clap it. So that's the most commonly known duty of a camera assistant. And for the first camera assistant, the other most commonly known one is pulling focus. You actually are literally changing the focus on the lens, sometimes remotely with a wireless monitor and a wireless follow focus controller, controlling a gear that's attached to the lens. So, but there's a lot more duties there's a lot more duties that come along with that. For example, a lot of times the first camera assistant will have to set up the entire camera package to have the DP or the camera operator wants it. Another thing is changing all the settings most of the time. If you want to get as much work off of the DP's shoulders or the camera assistant's shoulders because they're busy working on how the image is going to look, and it's more of a technical thing as a camera assistant. So while the DP or the camera assistant are like working together, DP or the camera operator are working together on how the image is going to look. Well, they might tell you, hey, put this setting on the camera, and then you go and do that. Or take this filter and put it in the matte box, and then you go ahead and do that, of course, with the second camera assistant to help you. So there's a lot more to it than that, but those are like the main basic things. And yeah, so.
So you just came off of a movie.
Yeah, I did.
So how did that go? In general, how was that experience? Was this your first one, or
It was technically my first feature going all the way through.
okay?
So I've been on a couple features before, like a day or two most of the time. I've done post-production work for a few features as well, but this is my first time being on a feature film as the first camera assistant all the way through, minus a few days where I had a wedding that I had to go to, and then they also had a different crew in the first 2 days. But other than that, I was there almost the whole time. So it was a really great experience. I learned a lot on how to work with actors, for one, how to work with some newer kind of people that are just getting into the game or just haven't learned it quite a lot yet. Because shameless plug, I'm in the union, so I'm trying to help people, newer people with their with just stuff that they might not know yet. Like I helped my second AC with his tape markers for the actors, because a lot of people don't know that it's just how you do it. You gotta, when the actors are blocking, sometimes you'll have stand-ins blocking instead. What you'll do is you'll take a piece of tape probably about 6 inches long. Make sure you get that nice fold in there, that corner fold when you rip the tape apart. If you don't know what that is, I'm sure someone could tell you in the film industry.
We'll tell you later.
Yeah. You just fold it over when you're tearing the tape.
It's just so you can grab the next piece without having to struggle with it.
So then what you do is you set it down between their feet, and the tip of it needs to be where their toes, a little bit ahead of their toes. So about probably an inch in front of their toes, just in between their feet is that one first piece of tape. Then when the actors are done blocking, you take another piece of tape and you put it from side of the foot, outside of the foot, to the other outside of the other foot. Just make sure, basically, the top of the T is like way longer than the middle of the T. So that's the proper way of doing it.
And
some people make really tiny T's, and that's not the right way.
And that's just so that you can get out of the way quicker.
Right, yeah, that's why you do the middle part first and just let them do their blocking after that. Sometimes you need to move markers or make new ones and just rip up the old ones. But that's the quickest way. And then once they're out, once the stand-ins are out, or once the actors can walk away for a second, you just set that top piece of tape down. Mm-hmm. So, but other than that, I mean, it was a great experience. Like I said, I was really worried, honestly, going in about like if I would be too exhausted after the first few days, or even after like a week or two. I know that I was warned after the first 2 weeks, people start to like get really exhausted. I guess I was fortunate enough that I really wasn't that exhausted. I was only exhausted mostly because whenever I would sleep in the room, next to this other guy, because we all shared, like, a few of us shared a room, because cut down on costs. This one guy snored so loud, and I won't say who it was because he knows. And man, I could not sleep on those days I was in the same room. So I moved to another room at one point, and I felt great the next day. And it had been a couple weeks, and it was just much better that way. But yeah, try and get some good sleep when you can, and just don't waste time looking at your phone if you can get sleep instead. And don't waste time watching Hulu or Netflix if you can spend more time sleeping. So, yeah.
I actually want to jump back a little bit here because you were talking about the T's, and I noticed that like most ACs, they do use the tape to put T's down, but there's also some T's that I've seen that are already created. They're like little solid, that you just throw down.
They're like a metal bracket or the sand T's.
So exactly, do you have a preference between the two? Because I can imagine some issues with the metal T's or the sandbag T's.
The metal T's, if you do it on like concrete or something, it'll make a loud noise if the actor steps on it, and they move. When you might not want them to move, just because an actor might kick it or something. So I always prefer markings that can be stuck there, whether you're using like chalk, something that you stick into the ground, like that reminds me. With the sand tees, they have a little hole at the top. You can put like what are they called? Golf tees in that hole to kind of keep them in place. That helps. But I know some actors don't like those sand tees because for whatever reason they just don't like them, and you want to do as much as you can to make the actors happy. I know it sucks sometimes, but you got to make the actors happy so you don't lose your job, because if they're off the movie, you lose your job for that month or so. So they quit. Yeah, you got to find a new actor or something.
I can only imagine like the reason, at least part of the reason why maybe actors don't like those tees. is they fear maybe stepping on them or tripping over them because
Right.
they're not always going to hit their
Or
mark
they lose the mark
perfectly.
because they kick it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which I get that, but sometimes I get so mad, like is what I've heard at least, and so I try to avoid that. But it's good to have in your arsenal. So, because I know that some ACs, second ACs, will have an entire separate bag dedicated to other marks. So, other different kinds that they've made or bought or whatever.
So I have a question for you. And what's your favorite part about being an AC?
Probably getting to work with so many different cool kinds of cameras. Another thing is I'm on the front row seat. Basically, being on the camera team, you're on the front row seat of the film. So,
Not really. The boom operator's on the front row seat.
Oh, dude, this guy.
sometimes,
Just letting you know.
sometimes
This guy
you're way
right here.
behind other people.
No.
Sometimes.
You're looking through like a
monitor.
lens
Well,
or a
well, it
monitor, and
depends.
guess
It
what?
depends.
I'm looking right at the actor, and they can't be mad because that's my job.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right, because as a second AC, once you mark that slate, you're supposed to look away, and basically, if you don't have anywhere else to go, you just turn around, or sometimes you have to crouch.
I sort of lied. I'm usually not looking right at the actor. I'm looking above their head.
Yeah,
Really.
because you're trying to get out of their eye line.
Yeah.
Because I understand, like, they might get distracted if they see you, like, if everyone's staring at them,
Yeah.
like, that's just distracting, and they'll like look at you, and if you make a movement, like don't make faces when somebody does something wrong or you do something wrong. I've learned that not the hard way, but I've learned that out of doing it, and then people tell me, "Hey, don't do that," because that's distracting too. And they're like, "What? Why are you making that face?" And even if it's just your own fault because you didn't pull focus right or you stepped on something that was loud, try not to make any faces. Just don't react to those kind of things until after they cut, maybe. And then another thing is that, don't try not to laugh. It's really hard in a comedy, or even if something just really funny, silly happens. And when they're still rolling, try not to laugh. I've done it a couple of times. Luckily, the time I remember on the movie, they were inside of a car. And I wasn't inside the car. Like, I was just watching. I was just listening, actually, and watching over the director's monitor because I didn't need to pull focus for it because it was just constant focal plane. So it was so funny, though. So I laughed right when this had cut, and I almost basically ruined the shot, I guess, because I was close enough to the car you could probably hear it. But yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we got a little off topic, but that was good stuff.
Yeah.
What are your, other than the front row, being at the
you're
front
right.
row, what are your favorite?
Another favorite thing is I'm making movies. In general, I mean, that could be any position on a film set, whether you're like a teamster driving the trucks, whether you're sound guy, whether like anything basically, your makeup, wardrobe, you're playing make believe and you're getting paid to do it. And I mean, to me, there's nothing better. And yeah, I'm trying to think of something else that I might like about. I like pulling focus. I like being responsible for the image, but also with that comes a lot of like kind of frightening aspects. Like, I could cause a production to take all day on this one shot because I didn't pull focus properly, or you know what I mean.
That's part of the.
But it's like it's empowering when you get it right. It's very like, wow, I did that. I pulled that focus like really well when they're coming back and forth to and from the camera. There's some shots like that in this movie that I worked on, and it's called First Lady, by the way. It's cool if I plug it because
It's not cool. We don't support First Lady.
Shut up.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking around. I don't care.
Well, yeah, it's cool because there's already like BTS photos out already. The hashtag is #FirstLadyFilm. If anyone's
we're
interested,
gonna have to cut this out just so you know.
and looking at it. No, you won't.
I know we're
You
not.
just put it in
Just
the
kidding.
commercial break. Other than that, if you're a second AC, at least your arm's in there. Sometimes your face when you're at the beginning of the shot, but they never really put that in the movie. Obviously, they might put it in like a blooper reel or in like a promo thing. Like your arm is just sitting there with the slate, and then everyone recognizes my arm with my tattoo of the film. So,
Those are what, dolly tracks, right?
No, somebody said that the other day.
I
I thought those were dolly tracks, but then I realized it was film. Oh, you were. Excuse
I
me.
was there, yeah.
You were, yeah, I was like,
funny.
well, closer than a ladder, right? Someone thought it was a ladder. One time. Well, I have a friend. Quick story. I have a friend who has a film camera on his arm. Actually, on his arm, and it's like, so it's got the two circles on top for like where the film would go, and it kind of looks like a choo-choo train. I say choo-choo. So it kind of looks like a train upside down, right? And one of our friends was like, "Oh, that's so cool. You have the tracks, and he has the train." And we were just like, I mean, he was kidding, but it was very funny. Yeah,
That's crazy.
totally off topic, but it's
No, that's fine.
So, I mean, well, first of all, how long have you been an AC now?
officially like doing it professionally. A little over a year, actually. So my first real AC gig was last year. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. I think at the beginning of the summer. I worked on a commercial for Virginia Tech. It was just a small thing, kind of for their game day, kind of, you know what I mean? It was just promoting their football games, I guess. I worked on, or I guess all their sports, just their team pride in general, you know what I mean? So I worked on that. It was my first real AC gig where I got paid. And I've learned a lot from that because I got a little bit of an earful. A little bit of an earful. I got an earful at one point because I didn't do something right. I've learned that you need to have a cart as a camera assistant. It's better. It's more likely you're going to need one as a second AC. But I would just recommend purchasing a junior cart or something. Or in Atlanta, there's a guy who makes them locally. There's always ways to get. They're not too expensive if you're willing to save the money, and $700 might be the cheapest one you can get, but it's decent, right? It's got the two shelves. You might be able to mount some camera stuff to it. It's definitely worth it to have that because I've learned out of experience that you should have one because it really helps your shoot. Even if you can't get a kit fee for it, like and have them pay a little extra money for it, you're just gonna want it because you're gonna realize, wow, I wish I could lug all this gear around without carrying it all, and taking multiple trips.
Can you expand on the kit fee?
So the kit fee would be like, maybe like $25 to $75, maybe to $100 a day, on top of your regular day rate. So my regular day rate is probably like $250 at the lowest. Well, $150 at the lowest actually. And I don't like doing it for that low.
But the lowest is mostly independent films.
Yeah,
right?
it's if they
and that's not in union.
Yeah, exactly. Not a union would be more than that, but a lot more. But and my highest rate, if someone's desperate and they're willing to pay it, like they have the money, I start out with $400 and see if they like want me to go down. That's more than union usually, but as a second at least. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if I'm the only camera assistant, I might just do $400. But yeah, so.
Well, you had mentioned just a little bit ago that you gotten in trouble, kind of, on that first.
Yeah, I didn't get in trouble, but the DP was kind of upset that I didn't work with the camera. I hadn't worked with that camera before, and I didn't tell him ahead of time.
Yeah, everybody in the industry is lying about that stuff.
What's that?
Nope. All the people starting out you always have to lie a little bit to get where you need to be.
So they asked me, "Is that camera okay?" I said, "Sure." And I should have told him, "Hey, I've never worked the camera before. Just to let you know, maybe I could get my hands on it earlier or something." Right? Mm-hmm. That would have been more ideal. So
it's actually funny because I worked with an AC a couple of months ago who actually told me just that. He's like, "Look, when you're getting into AC stuff, if that's a path you want to take, don't be afraid to fib a little bit about what you're capable of, because you're probably still going to do better than some of those other PAs that are coming into it."
Yeah, the very, very first time. Yeah, so like a lot of times they'll be like, "Hey, are you sure you're comfortable doing this or pulling focus or whatever?" Right? Even if you're really not sure, like you're just like, "I don't know if I could do that." Just say you can do it, and you will figure it out. Because that was the first feature I ever pulled focus for a month ago, or not a month, a couple weeks ago, and I got it. I had it down after, like, just even on the first day. So I think it went really well for being my first feature. It wasn't the first thing I pulled focus on, but it was definitely a lot of trial and error, like when we're not filming.
Just sorry for the rain.
It's really,
It's steadily gotten worse and worse throughout the podcast. I just saying that.
Picked up
You
a
go
good
ahead.
weight.
Over the last year, what is something, or like what mistake did you make that you not only learned from, but continually learn from?
That's a good question. Having a cart or not having a cart at first, and then realizing, wow, I really need a cart. Like even if it's just one of those like rock and roller yellow and black carts, something to carry gear around. Especially on like commercial shoots where you have a lot of times where you're like moving from location to location, maybe all at one address or something, or one like it was on a college campus, that first one, and luckily the grip van had a hand truck in it, but it was like we're moving from like building to building to building, and there was no way that we would have been able to do that without that cart. So that's probably one of the biggest ones. Another one is, like I said, I needed to know the camera ahead of time, or at least tell them. I did look up some instructions first, but there was one thing that the DP wanted on the camera that I worked on for that commercial was how to do false color. It was on the area mirror, and I did not know how to do it. And he was like, have you worked this camera before? And I said, no. And he was like, you need to tell me that ahead of time. So later that night, at the hotel, I went and figured it out. And I got it to be one of like the quick buttons on like the viewfinder. So you just click a button and it becomes false color. You just click it again and it turns off. So that was nice to be able to like figure it out that night. But I wish I had known ahead of time. So yeah, I didn't know the menu ahead of time. So now I kind of do. I haven't used one in a while, but yeah.
Yeah, I bet you have to like, as an AC, just kind of learn a lot of different camera settings.
Yeah, some things kind of go hand in hand. And the red menu, I think, is easy to understand and quick, but I hate the touchscreen about it. I guess they have the module you can add on to the side, but not all of them have that. So,
Is there anything other than like camera menu stuff or whatever that you might have to learn right before you go?
Well, maybe maybe like the follow focus that you're using, if you've never used that particular one before, or they're usually pretty easy to understand, or the wireless like HDMI or SDI transmitter, such as Teradek or whatever. I mean, those are easy. Those generally kind of just set up on their own. They're already linked to each other. You just kind of turn them on. So yeah, that's basically the two or the few things that I would learn how to do ahead of time if you've never worked with the equipment before. Some rental houses will let you just go mess with their gut stuff. If you call them ahead of time and be like, hey, I'd like to just mess with this camera a little bit. I got a gig with it. But then the other time is if you're working on a feature and your task a lot of times as a camera assistant, go pick up all the gear. So in that time, you're supposed to sit there, set everything up, make sure it all works properly. If something doesn't work, you tell the rental house. But because they don't have the time to set it all for you, but they just have it set down in places in a room, in the prep room, and you go prep it, and then that's the time to learn, because you can spend like all day, I'm sure, doing that. And then so another piece of advice I'd like to add, you can move wherever you want. Another piece of advice I'd like to add is when slating, what they say is the general rule of thumb for like getting your slate the right distance away from the camera every time is for every 10 millimeters on the lens, so like 35, 25, 50 or something, you're that many feet from the lens. So let's say at 35, you'd be about 3.5 feet from the lens. 50 millimeter, you'd be 5 feet from the lens, and then you get it about exactly where you need it. And if you can't get the right, like if you're out of frame, but you're at the right distance, but you're out of frame, what you can do, if there's a filter in front of the lens, you can look for your reflection in that filter and kind of like position the slate where that is, and then just clap it there. yeah, so it's different for anamorphic. I actually don't know what the difference is for anamorphic. I've never done that before, but I'm sure the next time I do it, I can just test it out real quick and kind of estimate next time when I use anamorphic. I've shot with anamorphic as a camera assistant, but we weren't slating for it because it was a silent, basically a voiceover commercial. So
this podcast is for beginners also. So like, let's talk about the basics of like slating.
Yeah.
Some of the really basic stuff. So
the distance from the camera is really key to getting the right, to keep the cameraman from looking for it and by moving the camera around. Also to keep the focus puller from like having to guess where you are. But so the focus puller can just switch to 5 feet if you're on a 50 millimeter, and then you just hold it about 5 feet away, and then it's in focus. And it's really easy to estimate that. As a camera assistant, even if you're a second AC, just kind of learn 6 feet. Just kind of learn how to estimate 6 feet from the sensor plane, because it'll really save you time, especially because then you can just add a few feet or subtract a few feet for the slate. And if you're a focus puller, that'll help too. But
you could just lay down on the ground.
Yeah, if you're 6 6 feet tall, just put your arm span out.
Yeah,
because that's about how tall you are generally. Is your arm span from fingertip to fingertip. So another thing is slate like labeling. So some people start off with just the number. Some people start off with 1A or whatever for the scene. I generally like to do the number only first, but I think the proper way, like the way I don't know. I think the proper way is technically starting with a letter. So 1A or 1 apple. Then the next setup of the camera would be, you do it for every setup.
I've always seen the number first, but that doesn't mean that's
right.
How
I don't think
everyone
that's the
does
proper way technically, but I don't think people really care that much. So it's whatever the script supervisor actually tells you to do. Actually, so because they actually have it labeled on their script, they know what's next. So every setup you put a new letter. So like 1 apple would be the first one, obviously. 1 baker would be the next one. You can make whatever letter word you want it to be. I would just go with something simple,
Charlie,
and
Delta,
and recognizable very easily. So don't put a complicated word like we don't do words that start with a different sounding version of the letter. So like 1 Charlie. Well, I guess Charlie's really normal, right? But the thing about that is that it doesn't start with the regular letter C sound. You can do Charlie, but don't do serial. Because that could also be an S for the word serial, like serial number or serial killer. So don't do that. Don't do words that sound similar, but start with a different letter. Just be careful of the word you use. Make sure it's clear, concise. Yeah, don't make it a long word. And don't be too playful with it. Just pick a word.
The rule of thumb is the military letters, which is Charlie, Delta, Echo.
So and the ones what I've heard most is actually Apple and Baker. I don't know why they don't say Alpha and Bravo very often in the professional world, but I just hear Apple and Baker mostly. But whatever, it doesn't really matter.
It's because everybody's hungry on set.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it really is.
Yeah, they want some apples and they want a bakery. They want people to make some bread. I'm trying to make some bread on set. You know what I mean? Get paid. Yeah, I mean another thing is if you're second AC, as with the clapper, the slate. One thing I did on the last shoot on the movie that I worked on was I added a couple pieces of tape. I made a loop where my thumb goes, like on the part that moves on the slate, so I could put my thumb through it and then I could hold it with one hand easily. Because otherwise, it's harder to hold it with one hand because you might drop it. It's easier if you just add that piece of tape and then you can just do it with one hand, and then your other hand could be holding a flashlight or something on the slate if it's dark or something like that. Yeah. Other thing is wearing like a headset flashlight, whatever they call it. I don't know.
A headlamp.
Headlamp. Thank you. Those are good too.
And then I just wanted to add that you skip I's and O's.
Yeah, skip I's, O's, and Q's too.
And Q's.
Yeah, because a Q might look like an O. I mean, a 0. I looks like a 1. O looks like a 0, and so does Q. So yeah, skip the. I forgot about that. Thank you. What I did is one time I bought. I don't use it very often because I realized how dumb it was to buy this. But I bought one of those quarterback sleeve things to keep their plays in, just to put my slate letter for the military alphabet to put in there. But then, I crossed out I, Q, and O, but I haven't been wearing it because it gets really hot, especially down here in Georgia. So that was kind of useless. But yeah, just learn the alphabet. If you have to keep a little paper on you, just read it real quick, put it in your pocket, and then slate it. So that helps you with the phonetic alphabet.
So real quick, I think the last two questions here for this segment is the first one. What advice do you have for people kind of stepping in or wanting to step into an AC role?
So advice that I would give to basically a newbie as an AC. Don't be a newbie to film as an AC. Get in as a PA first or something and just learn, just watch the ACs. If you're brand new to film, don't just jump in as an AC. Another thing is practice pulling focus with a manual follow focus that's on the camera itself. Sometimes you got to practice pulling focus on just the lens. So I would practice doing that. That's a good starting point. Make movies with your friends, even if you're just doing it for free. If you're not a professional yet, there's no reason why you can't do a bunch of free fun stuff for free. Like a short film for 48-hour film project, or just a short film for fun, that you're going to throw on YouTube with your friends.
We should probably do a podcast eventually about 48-hour film.
Yeah,
We will.
Another small piece of advice I would say is, let's say it's your first time on set. Just make sure your camera team always has water, including yourself, of course, and just write their initials on top. That's really simple, but it's really important because a lot of times the crew is not able to grab waters all the time. They have to wait for someone to ask them, "Hey, do you want a water?" Or as a second AC, it's a lot easier for a second AC to go grab a couple waters real quick and just give them to the rest of the camera crew. So.
And then I think the last question is, what's your end game, man?
What's my end game?
What do you want to do?
What I want to do is cinematography. I guess it could move on to directing too, but I really like cinematography. I love messing with light, shadows, and just camera angles and lenses and all that, and movements, camera movements. Because it's not just about the camera movement. It's not just about the camera. It's also about the light. A lot of people forget that. So that's my real end goal. But honestly, if I was stuck being an AC for the rest of my life, I honestly wouldn't mind it that much because it's just so much fun.
Well, I think that's about it. It wraps it up. So, Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It's been great. We've been trying to get you on for a while, so
Yeah.
It's nice to finally get this done out of the
Well,
way
so
because
busy.
now we don't got to deal with you anymore, which is awesome. So,
I can actually kick you out of our house now. And
No.
Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding.
Goodbye.
No, you're great.
Thank you.
Let's say goodbye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And cut.
Cut. All right. You make that one? So we'll go ahead and talk it.
That was simple.
Yeah, so
Same thing.
second team in.
Okay.